Welcome back to the Nick Bartlett Show, everybody. My name is Nick Bartlett, and I'm a senior writer here at Super West Sports, as well as at OregonSportsNews.com. After a bit of a slow tilt last week, we didn't have the most interesting slate of games out west. We got some pretty good ones this week, so just excited to get to it, really. The four games I'll be breaking down this week are Indiana at Oregon, Michigan at USC, BYU at Arizona, and ASU at Utah. I always do two quick hitters as well, but you got to stay tuned for that because that would spoil the fun. And why would we want to do that here? As always, please remember to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'm grinding out here, and I enjoy talking about college football, so I'd appreciate your help. And yeah, let's just get straight to the action. Enough talking here. The big four this week, as mentioned, we'll start with Indiana at Oregon. I think that's the headliner game for sure. The spread is going to be 7.5 favoring Oregon. I'll give you my picks again here for the spread in a second here, but obviously I got to give you a little bit of a preview first. So there's levels to this college football thing. This may be a top 10 matchup, but it's Oregon. You cannot convince me that Indiana has the talent level of Oregon just yet. Kirk Cignetti has done a phenomenal job changing around the Hoosier program. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen such a turnaround in 2 years, quite frankly, at the highest level of college football, but it's still the Ducks. It's still the Ducks, and they've built up this roster over 5-6 years. They've obviously, with the new age of college football, probably putting a little money as well. But bottom line is the depth is there, and they're the more talented team at this point. I could be proven wrong, but I just don't think Indiana has the depth yet to be considered in the same tier as Oregon. But let me finish the rest of my notes here, and I'll let you guys decide. That's just my kind of initial thoughts on this takeaway, or on this matchup here. Again, the Ducks have looked phenomenal the whole season, including the victory in Happy Valley. Still a big win, even with UCLA beating Penn State last week. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That's just wild. But so even though the Hoosiers, I'm not really giving the Hoosiers much love here. I do want to show some stats that really kind of do show them love, for lack of better terms. They've had some solid results this season. They beat the Illini by 53. They also won in Iowa City, which beating Iowa on the road is never easy. IU is a good team, but if they're going to pull off the upset, they'll need Fernando Mendoza to play above the Mendoza line. It's baseball season. I could have done better. I enjoyed that one. But Mendoza, seriously, after leaving Cal, he's killing it for the Hoosiers. He's throwing for 1,208 yards, 16 touchdowns, and one interception. And something tells me he might be ready for the big game. Obviously, losing that game with Cal against at Miami last year. I don't even remember where it was. But losing to Miami last year in that heartbreaking fashion, something tells me he's been waiting for a national game again. So let's see how Mendoza comes and balls out. He's also been using his feet a little bit this year. I'll throw some stats out there. Kind of caught me off guard how much he's actually been using his feet. So Mendoza's really stepping up in I feel like I say this a little bit too much, but I do feel he's one of the kind of more underrated quarterbacks nationally. I really liked him at Cal, and I am happy to see him performing well with the Hoosiers. Another thing to consider in this matchup is that Indiana boasts a third-ranked scoring defense. That caught me off guard when looking this up. Again, third-ranked for the Hoosiers? That's crazy. And they've already played Iowa, so just respect. Again, seriously, Kirk Cignetti's doing something. I'm trying to take away nothing from the program. I just think that Oregon, again, has a little bit more depth at this point. They do rank 7th in passing yards allowed per game and 17 in rushing yards, talking about the Hoosiers here. And Lewis, Moore, and Amari Farrell have 3 interceptions apiece. For me, as long as Dante Moore protects the ball, I'm thinking, again, that UO should be able to control the time of possession. I'm thinking more physicality, more speed, just, again, years of recruiting and depth. Looking at the line for this game, I think I kind of spoiled it up front as we're getting into our rhythm here. But again, Oregon favored by 7.5 points. Over-under is at 55.5. For the spread, I do think they will cover. Again, I think Indiana's a much improved team. I don't think they're going to necessarily get blown out, but I do think that Oregon beats them by more than basically a touchdown. I think Oregon's going to handle that at home. So they will cover. Again, the Ducks will cover. Looking at the over-under 55.5, I'm actually taking the under on this. Again, I use defense surprise me, third-ranked scoring defense nationally. Oregon's obviously has a good defense, so I'm picking the under on this one. Hopping into the next game. To me, again, that is the biggest game by far this week. I'm interested to see how Indiana performs. Maybe I'm hating on them a little bit too hard. Obviously, this is Super West, but I'm interested to see if Indiana gives Oregon a run for their money. Because if they do, Indiana's suddenly for real. They don't even have to win this game. They just have to compete. if Indiana even makes it to the fourth quarter, I got a lot of respect for these guys. So, and looking at the next, oh yeah, and I forget, guys, I always throw in some extra stats here. Almost forgot to do so. For Oregon, Dante Moore is thrown for 1,210 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Jerry Hill Jr. leads the Ducks with 270 yards rushing. Jaden Lamar also has 232 yards rushing. They've combined for 5 TDs on the ground. DeCorian Moore leads Oregon with 296 receiving yards, so cool to see the freshman doing his thing. Mateo Ugalele has 5 tackles for loss and leads with 4 sacks at the linebacker position. For Indiana, Roman Hemby has rushed for 351 yards, complimenting Mendoza. Kalen Black, they have another good running back, has rushed for 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Sarrett, they've combined for 820 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. They both have something like 412 and 408 yards, and I believe they have 6 touchdowns apiece. Looking at their defense, Lewis Moore leads the team with 29 tackles and is tied for the team lead with 3 interceptions at defensive back. And since it got a little out of rhythm there, again, just a quick reminder, I think Oregon will cover the spread. I think that Oregon, again, will win by more than a touchdown, and I'm picking the under, which I believe was 55.5. Next game, Michigan at USC. Let's not tell you the spread off the top because that's not how I normally do it. And we're making it difficult, guys. Making it difficult, man. Let's keep it easy. Let's keep it easy, y'all. All right. But anyways, if styles make fights, then this match is essentially a Russian wrestler versus a flamboyant boxer. No better way to describe it. Michigan's ground and pound, really aggressive, just trying to brutalize you. While USC's got their flashy big name receivers, going to do some 360 freaking jump moves in the air and catch the ball and maybe jump over you in the process. So very different styles, really. You could talk about they almost represent their respective. That's too deep. We're in a divided world, way too deep, y'all, way too deep. I was going to go deep there. But go with the Russian wrestler versus flamboyant boxer. Michigan is led by their brutal running attack fueled by Justice Haynes. Haynes has rushed for 654 yards, 8 touchdowns, and is averaging 7.7 yards per carry. His productivity is extremely important because the Wolverines have a freshman quarterback. And Bryce Underwood hasn't been asked to do a lot, so it's hard to get a read on him. His stats aren't good or bad. He just hasn't been asked to do a lot. Again, it's Michigan, so they can pretty much just run over everyone at all times. So we will have to see Underwood, I'm guessing, a bit in this game with USC's vaunted offense. They do have the 91st ranked passing offense. Again, as we touched on, they don't pass the ball too much. And the 13th ranked rushing offense. Yeah, you get it. I've said that twice now, like 3 times, maybe 4. Michigan's defense only allows 16.1 points per game, and that is good. That's good. So seriously, if you're just looking at the Russian wrestler analogy again, good defense, good running game. I feel like I'm telling you nothing new with Michigan. This isn't like breaking news, so we'll just move forward. For USC, they're relying on their dangerous passing attack led by Jaden Maeva. The Trojans average the 3rd most passing yards in the country. Maeva's thrown for 1,587 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 1 interception. SC's number 1 option at wideout is Mekhi Lemon. He's really solid. Lemon has 589 yards and 5 touchdowns on the year. And Jacoby Lane is also another explosive threat at wideout. He averages 21.4 yards per reception. He also has 278 receiving yards. So USC's defense is pedestrian, and they may not be able to stop Michigan's 13th ranked rushing attack. But at some point, Lincoln Riley needs to win these big games. Logically, maybe Michigan is the better team. Maybe Michigan can control the tempo. Maybe they can go into LA and make them cry. But Lincoln Riley was selected to be the USC head coach. USC, the most winningest program on the West Coast, arguably nationally, historically in college football. He needs to start winning these games. He's at home. It has to be done. So logically, again, maybe Michigan can beat them on the ground and pound. But talking UFC analogies here, ground and pound. But again, I think that Lincoln Riley just has to start winning at some point. So we'll kind of have to wait and see if that happens. Looking at the spread for this matchup, I think it's pretty close. As USC is favored by 2.5 points, as they should be at home. So again, you're favored. Lincoln Riley, it's time. You got to find a way. You got a good quarterback, 2 good receivers, an improved defense. Gentry's a good player in your defense. It's time. At some point, you need to start winning these games. You're getting paid to win games. You're not at some random school. You're at USC, dog. So find a way. I do think USC will cover. Again, favored by 2.5 points. I do think USC will cover that spread. Over under is at 57.5, and I'm going with the over. I think I think USC's offense is going to score a lot of points. And again, I don't know if USC can necessarily stop Michigan. So I'm thinking we're going to go over in this one. Even though Michigan could really slow it down, I think enough big plays, maybe a turnover too, gets you over that 57.5 points. So again, I do think USC will cover, and I am picking the over. All right. Next two games I'd say are like in this week. Obviously, it's always the big four. I would say those first two matchups to me are the real big ones. I know some people may disagree and think that Utah-Arizona State is the biggest matchup of the week because of the Big 12 kind of repercussions. But to me, just again, you got the USC brand name, Oregon brand name. So to me, those are just a little bit bigger. But moving forward here to that ASU-Utah matchup, I'm thinking – I don't really have any initial thoughts on this one. I'll just get to my notes before I kind of spoil them. So again, this matchup is just intriguing to me. Arizona State enters this contest after a bye week, having won two close matchups against TCU and Baylor previously. Utah returns home to Salt Lake City after getting really embarrassed by Texas Tech. Utah doesn't get beat like that at home ever. That's a proud fan base. That's a good coach, and that's a good football team that does all the little things right. That's a true boys to men program. That's not some college football. We're going to send you out in the real world. We don't care about you. That's a boys to men program. They take care of their own. That's family. And Utah doesn't like losing at home, specifically the way they did to Texas Tech 2 weeks ago. So I expect to see them play a lot better for that. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. Again, so Utah is attempting to rebrand themselves on the national stage. Texas Tech beat them down, as we touched on, in Salt Lake City 2 weeks ago. One interesting storyline in this contest, I guess it's really interesting because I started yelling there, is Devin Dampier gets to play against a team from his home state. Dampier led Scottsdale Seguro to the 2021 Open State Championship, so that means he played his high school ball in Arizona, if you're not following me. There are also two cross connections between his prep days and ASU's current coaching staff. I think it's like his old coach used to be like, his old high school coach might be the tight ends coach at Arizona State. I felt that was a little too nerdy to write that down and doesn't actually impact the game. But you guys get it. He's going to want to play well against a big-time college from his former state. That's the bottom line here. Dampier did have a nice bounce-back game against West Virginia last week. And for the Sun Devils, they really just need to match the physicality of the Utes. It's like Michigan, but maybe a little bit less boring, with all due love to the Wolverines out there. You know what to expect out of Utah. Physical ball, smart, no turnovers, and just, again, winning football. There's a reason they win so much, and Kyle Whittingham's one of the most respected coaches out here in the West Coast and should be nationally if he hasn't garnered that reputation yet. I would imagine he has, but I'm going to fight for him a little bit. Utah's run defense is down a bit this year, a little bit shocking to me. Ranked 64th nationally, I'd expect them to really show out this game, and make it tough on the Sun Devils. ASU may be able to take advantage with their explosive rushing attack. They do rank 20th in rushing yards per game. Rayleigh Brown is a really explosive player. They also have the Army transfer. I believe his name's Udo, last name Udo. So they have a nice 1-2 punch. Bottom line, if they can find success on the ground, it'll open up space for Jordan Tyson, and you cannot guard him one-on-one. Unless you're literally the best cornerback in college football, you cannot guard him one-on-one. So if ASU can get that ground game going, they can put some pressure on the Utes here. I think Jordan Tyson is at least the best receiver in the Super West region. I think that's fair to say. They will also need to find a way to block Utes defensive end John Henry Daly. He has 6.5 sacks and 8.5 tackles for loss. Again, just going to be a fun game with the Muss and the Utah's home crowd bouncing back and really going to try and pull their boys through. I think Texas Tech is a little bit better than I think people realize this year. So the spread is Utah's favored by 5.5 points. I don't think Utah will cover the spread. I think that's disrespecting ASU. Had one tough loss earlier this year at Mississippi State, but ASU is still a really good team. Again, you got Jordan Tyson, Rayleigh Brown, Sam Levitt, and a pretty solid defense. So they're a solid group. And Utah's Utah. You know who they are. They had a bad year last year, and as long as they win this game, it looks like they're right back where they need to be. If they lose, well, some different things to talk about next week. But if they win, then right back to basically being Utah. So again, I do not think Utah will cover the 5.5 point spread. I do not think Utah will cover. And over under, I picked the over. I don't even know if I explained this. Basically, you got ASU's offense. I think Devon Dampier is going to want to perform well against his old state, and so I'm picking the over here. I think 47.5 is a little bit low for me for this contest. Final game, and I call this last one intriguing. This one's more just unique to me. I'm really curious to see about this Arizona BYU game. I think BYU is probably the better team, but Arizona has a little bit better defense than I realized. Obviously, Fafita's there, and let me not spoil any more notes because that's what I always do because I'm a nerdy college football guy and I just start talking before I actually read my notes that I spent the whole day writing down. So I should probably actually do that. So yeah, looking at this one, I'm gonna give you the spread right off the bat. Spread BYU's favored by 1.5, so this is supposed to be a really close game. But let's get to the notes. This game is a test to see where Arizona's program. That's why this one's unique to me. Wildcats have definitely taken a step forward this year under Brent Brennan. Again, last year was just abysmal, transitional year from Jed Fish leaving and lost some talent, lost Teto or McMillan and a couple other players. So you're looking at a new team this year, and the Wildcats have already taken a step forward. That's obvious, but how much? Because if they beat BYU all of a sudden, this team's legit and looking at a potential shot to win the Big 12. They lose, yeah, they've improved, they're good, but they win here and at home, and things change quickly. Things change very quickly for this program. My real cool analogy was it has them hopping up the stairs. For BYU, this matchup should prove an opportunity to put another decent win on their resume. Kaylani Satake just finds a way to win. Really solid coach, and it's cool to see a man like him get an opportunity at a school like BYU. I think that's a really good mix. I was gonna say a match made in heaven, but I'm gonna leave the jokes out today. I'm gonna leave the jokes out. I don't know if that's appropriate for BYU, if you catch what I'm saying, but I'll keep it simple. My bad if that's disrespectful in any way. But the Cougars are led by Bear Bachmeier on offense. Bachmeier had his most explosive game of the year last week, throwing for 351 yards against West Virginia. BYU's offense is really just an efficient unit. They're not super explosive. They just do all the little things right. They're kind of like Utah and Michigan. That was such a weird analogy. They're definitely not like Utah or Michigan. Basically, LJ Martin and Chase Roberts are both really smart players. LJ Martin at halfback and Roberts at receiver. So it just adds kind of skill positions at every level who can impact the game. High IQ skill position players. Stutter like I was in Billy Madison there. They do rank 19th in turnovers lost, which is pretty solid for BYU. So again, they don't hurt themselves. But really, this should prove interesting because UA has a good secondary, gets their hands on a lot of passes. They're ranked 12th in the nation with 5 interceptions. BYU also has 5 as well. So they have both teams have a decent defense here. The key to this matchup, however, should prove Arizona's offense. If the Wildcats can connect on a few big plays, it could speed up the Cougars' pace. Luke Wysong and Trey Spivey each average over 16.9 yards per reception. Javen Watley leads the team with 316 yards receiving. And as I touched on before, the Cougs' most notable skill players are LJ Martin and Chase Roberts, just duo veteran leaders at halfback and receiver positions. Already touched on Kaylani Satake, ruined my notes in that regard. I just think he'll have a squad ready to go. He's not trying to lose this game. I think his team is looking for some big things this year, so they should be ready to go. Looking at the spreads, I touched on, BYU is favored by 1.5, I said. I do think BYU will cover the spread. Again, I do think BYU will cover. I just haven't seen enough from Arizona yet. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying they can't even win this game. I just haven't seen it quite yet. They're really close. And again, if they win this game, different conversation next week. I need a new cliche, just real talk though. Over under 47.5. I'm going with the under. BYU's defense is good and Arizona's defense is good. And I think BYU's defense will limit Arizona's explosiveness, and BYU's not really explosive in Arizona's good secondary. So you're guessing that the Cougars have to earn everything up and down the field. So again, I do think BYU will cover, and over under at 47.5. I'm picking the under. My 2 little quick hitters, you already know I don't go into depth on these games, but I do I touch on them a little bit. But before we get the quick hitters, because this is what I always do, I almost forget all the stats I write down. No Fafita. I'm going to throw in one final thing for the Arizona BYU game, just like I did. I'm a nerd, guys. It'll bother me if I don't. I know it's probably not necessary, but I'll give you all the information I wrote down. I might go a little bit crazy. So no Fafita's thrown for 1,341 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Ismail Mahdi leads Arizona with 382 yards rushing. He has 1 touchdown as well. And Javen Watley leads Arizona with 316 yards receiving. He's also added 3 touchdowns. And Chase Kennedy leads Arizona with 4 tackles for loss and is tied for the team lead with 2 sacks at the linebacker position. For BYU, Bear Bachmeier's thrown for 1,048 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He's also added 206 yards, represent the 206 baby. You already know, Seattle, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. So he's added 206 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. LJ Martin leads the team with 490 rushing yards. He's also added 3 touchdowns. Chase Roberts, a receiver we touched on, leads the team in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns with 20, 395, and 3. Jack Kelly leads the team with 6.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. He's also added 21 tackles at the linebacker position for BYU. So again, because I wanted to throw in my notes, make it tricky, make you use your memory. You guys remember mental math? What was the little math slips they give us when we were kids? I forget what they're called. Maybe, or what were they called? Mini math. That is what they're called. There's some mini math for your memory. But bottom line, I do think BYU will cover the spread. I'm not saying that again. And over under 47.5, going with the under. 2 good defenses. You already know what it is. Now to the quick hitters, the mini math part of the show. See what I did there? Like that? Totally unplanned. I got a rap career, if you didn't know. I'm a professional rapper on the side. So, but the 2 quick games are going to be Washington. Is Rutgers at Washington? Yeah, Rutgers at Washington. I'm going to give you a heads up here. No one cares because the Mariners are playing at that same time. And I live in Seattle, and the Huskies, for once, might actually have a quiet crowd. If their fans show out for that game while the Mariners are in Game 5 during the Tigers, UW is one of the best fan bases in the country, and it can't be argued. That'd be crazy. That'd just be super respect. That's pretty much all I got to say on this game. Like I said, I don't really go into these too in depth. No, in all seriousness, I think Washington found themselves a little bit against Maryland last week. They still got Damon Williams Jr. quarterback, Jonah Coleman at halfback, and Denzel Boston at wideout. So they have a really good 1-2-3 on offense. I love Rutgers. Ethan Kaliak-Manis has really done well this year. Rutgers has actually switched their identity. They went from a defensive team to an offensive team, which catches me a little bit off guard. But I just don't think that's going to necessarily work in Seattle. I think that would have worked better if they had a good defense, actually. And also, UW lost in New Jersey last year, so they're going to want revenge. And it was a part of that weird play where the UW guy ran on the field when they got an interception and messed up everything. So this is a quick hitter, so that's that. Looking at the over under. Did I even write it down for this one? Nah, forget it. Basically, I think for Washington and Rutgers, I picked the over off the top of my head. And again, it doesn't really. Oh, I did write it down. Look at that, guys. 3 steps ahead of myself here. Just wrote at the bottom. Spread for Washington, 10.5. I do think Washington will cover. I think they'll cover that 10.5. Again, lost to Rutgers last year, so I do think they'll cover. And over under, as mentioned, I picked the over. Look at that memory, mini math. All right, that's the last time I'm saying that, but pick the over. Final game, Iowa State at Colorado. I'm interested to see how Iowa State bounces back. They're favored by 2.5 points, and I do think they'll cover. I'm not going to go too in depth on this one. I just think they'll cover that. I don't think Colorado's found themselves this year. Caden Salter isn't doing too much. Deion Sanders and the boys are kind of just losing a whole bunch, and for once, you can say that Colorado has kind of lost their steez, and you're going against a team who wants to get back to the Big 12 championship coming off a tough loss. So Rocco Beck is a really good quarterback. Iowa State has a good defense, and the Cyclones have a really loyal and good head coach as well. So I do think Iowa State will cover. And I am picking the under at 51.5. Again, I am picking the under. So basically, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. I really do appreciate it. I have a lot of fun making this show. I do. I don't know why. I like talking college football. So, see, just a quick recap of my picks before I get you out of here. And I actually do write them down now. So, for the spreads, I think Oregon will cover, USC will cover, Utah won't cover, and BYU will cover. Again, one more time, slow-mo recap, drop the bars, reverse it, flip it, and reverse it. Wait, yeah, remember that Missy Elliott song? Okay. So for the spreads, I think Oregon will cover, USC will cover, Utah won't cover, and BYU will cover. For the over-unders, under for Oregon, Indiana, over for Michigan, USC, over for Arizona State, Utah, and under for Arizona, BYU. Again, over-unders, under for Oregon, Indiana, over for Michigan, USC, over for Arizona State, Utah, and under for Arizona, BYU. For the quick hitters, you got to remember them yourself or rewind 5 minutes because we do have this thing called technology. So rewinding, you can hear it again. my great Washington preview where I was talking about the Mariners. So I really do appreciate the love and support, guys. Let's enjoy some games. There really are some fun games this week. I'm really curious to see Indiana and Oregon. Really want to see how Mendoza performs with the lights on. And I also want to see that Michigan USC, that Russian wrestler versus the flamboyant boxer. This has been the Nick Bartlett Show. Thank you for tuning in as always. Deuces and stay loving.